Don't eat the bluebonnets. And boys and girls, I went ahead and scanned in the pictures for us so you can read along with me today. And we're looking at those characters and seeing how they respond to that event or challenge they face. For a cow, Sue Ellen had a mind of her own, and when the other cows mooed, Sue Ellen whistled. And when Max the Longhorn gave an order, all the cows snapped to attention except Sue Ellen. She just swished her tail and batted her lashes and smelled the daisies. Having a mind of her own, Sue Ellen wasn't totally convinced. The next day, when Sue Ellen and Lisa Jean arrived at the South pasture, the bluebonnets were just starting to pop up, and Sue Ellen's mouth watered. Don't forget, we're not supposed to eat the bluebonnets, Lisa Jean reminded her. I'm not eating them. I'm just looking at them, Sue Ellen said, licking her lips. And as they stood beside the pond, Sue Ellen stuck her nose in the air and took a deep breath. Don't the bluebonnets smell yummy? Don't eat the bluebonnets, Lisa Jean reminded her. And Sue Ellen licked her lips again. I'm not eating them. I'm just smelling them. And she swished her tail. Water comes back to the pond every year, doesn't it? She muttered. Later, as Sue Ellen and Lisa Jean were gazing in the shade of the big oak tree, Sue Ellen noticed one small, perfect bluebonnet. It looked delicious, and her mouth watered. Don't eat the bluebonnets, Lisa Jean reminded her, and Sue Ellen stuck her tongue out and licked the perfect flower. I'm not eating it, I'm just licking it. She looked up at the trees and swished her tail. The leaves on the trees come back every year, don't they? She said. So do the birds, said Sue Ellen, as they watched the mockingbirds teach their babies to fly. I guess they do, Lisa Jean said as she watched each baby leave the nest and return safely. By the end of the week, the bluebonnets covered the pasture, and Sue Ellen couldn't stop thinking about them. She imagined how the petals would taste sliding down her throat. Sue Ellen thought about the water in the pond, and she remembered the leaves coming back every spring, and she watched the birds fly by. And with that, she charged into the south pasture and ate every single bluebonnet. So, boys and girls, I asked you this week to concentrate on those characters. And I also wanted you to concentrate on not only one, but maybe two or three. But something just happened. We faced a little bit of a problem or a challenge that Sue Ellen was facing. Can you tell me what that is? And now we're going to think a little bit more about Sue Ellen and how this problem is going to get resolved. What does she think? What is she doing? And how is she feeling as she ate the bluebonnets? Sue Ellen was so full, she had to lie under the big oak tree and take a nap. And when Sue Ellen opened her eyes, Max was standing over her. "Humph," complained Max. "Somebody ate all the bluebonnets." "So what? They'll just grow back next year." "Sometimes nature needs some help," Max mumbled. "We'll just wait and see," yawned Sue Ellen. So they waited. We met a new character, didn't we? The spring faded, the summer came and went. And in the fall, the leaves fell, and the winter chill blew in from the north. Sue Ellen and Lisa Jean thought spring would never come. Then the days began to grow longer and the snow started to melt. And when the spring grass grew so tall that it tickled their bellies, they knew it was time to head to the south pasture where the bluebonnets grew. And when they reached the pasture that morning, they saw Max carrying his sign. Well, Sue Ellen, I guess we won't be needing this sign since the bluebonnets haven't grown back, Max bellowed, and all the cows glared at Sue Ellen. Uh-oh. How do you think Sue Ellen is feeling when all the cows are glaring at her? And how do you think the other cows are feeling? We've definitely faced a big challenge here and a big problem. Do you know or think what's going to happen next? Having a mind of her own, Sue Ellen decided to take charge. If the bluebonnets won't come back, she thought, I'll bring them back myself. So with that, she swished her tail and headed to the north pasture to gather some of the bluebonnets growing there. Bluebonnets are bluebonnets, she said. I'll just move the bluebonnets from the north pasture to the south pasture. By midday, the bluebonnets had wilted and were so flat that even the bees couldn't find the pollen in them. Having a mind of her own, Sue Ellen decided to take charge. Bluebonnets are bluebonnets. I'll just paint them on the hay, she thought as she grabbed her paints. And as Sue Ellen finished painting the last bale of hay, she glanced up and exclaimed in shock, well, that isn't going to work for long. So, boys and girls, I'd like you to pause and think, what do you think she's going to do next? Now, how is she reacting when she's facing that event? Having a mind of her own, Sue Ellen didn't give up. She took her paints, scissors, construction paper, and glue, and headed to the south pasture. And by the end of the day, the field was alive with paper bluebonnets that Sue Ellen had made herself. That night, a Texas-sized thunderstorm woke Sue Ellen up. Lightning lit up the sky, the thunder boomed, and the rain soaked the ground. Oh boy, Sue Ellen is really having a hard time bringing those bluebonnets back, isn't she? But when Sue Ellen and Lisa Jean got to the pasture the next morning, the paper bluebonnets had blown away. I guess only real bluebonnets are the blue of the sky, and only real bluebonnets have that wonderful smell. And only real bluebonnets are worth licking, she sighed. So, having a mind of her own, Sue Ellen decided to take charge. So that night she went to the south pasture and planted a pocket of Max's seeds she had found in the barn. When the next spring came, Sue Ellen took out her paints and freshened up Max's sign. "Max," she said, batting her lashes, "will you please put the sign up again?" And he laughed. "There's no need. The Bluebonnets won't be back." Having a mind of her own, Sue Ellen decided to take charge. She took the sign and planted it firmly in the ground where Max had put it before. It wasn't long before their favorite pasture was beautiful again. Having a mind of her own, Sue Ellen decided she could look at the bluebonnets, smell the bluebonnets, lick the bluebonnets, but she could not eat the bluebonnets. The end.